Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
Doing all right. Got a little bit of sniffles, but other than that, hey, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to be talking about empathy and EQ. Welcome to the Leaders Cafe, where leaders discuss the latest trends and issues in leadership, team building, and the future of organizations. Each week, we'll bring you engaging conversations with successful leaders who will share their insights, experiences, and strategies for creating effective teams, navigating change, and driving innovation. So sit back, relax, and join us for a virtual cup of coffee at the Leaders Cafe.
Cool. Hey, so welcome to another episode of Leaders Cafe, where we're bringing empowering dialogues and engaging conversations about leadership skills, strategies, and insights. And I'm your host, Todd DeVoe, joined by the insightful, as I said, insightful Brian Colburn, where today we're going to delve into the intricate realm of empathy and emotional intelligence and how their intersection is paramount in leadership roles. So let's unpack how understanding the feelings and the viewpoints of team members can enable leadership and leaders to inspire, motivate, connect at a deeper level, and thereby increasing productivity, and job satisfaction. So, Brian, what is EQ to you?
You know, Todd, before we dive into that, I'd like to start off with a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready?
No.
There's a debate that too much empathy can be a hindrance for leaders, making them indecisive. What is your take on finding the balance between being empathetic and decisive?
Well, I don't think empathy means that you're not decisive. I don't think there's two different things, right?
Correct. And that question didn't allude to the fact that they were.
Well, no, but I know, but you're saying that if you're empathetic, that you're going to be indecisive.
No, too much empathetic. Too much empathy.
I don't know what that means. Too much empathy. So I breaking that down a little bit. Too much, right? Means like, okay, so you are like way over to the side and you just like flowers and unicorns all day long. I don't know. I'm not sure what they means by that. You know.
Well, okay. Well, then why don't we start off with defining empathy, Todd?
Empathy is when you are able to put yourself into the other person's role and shoes and be in the situation or be understanding of what they're going through. So I'll give you a good example, right? And I was going to use this later on in the show, but since, you know, we broke this a different way.
Curveballs today.
Throw curveballs. So Simon Sinek has this whole speech on empathy, what it means to be an empathetic leader. And it is like this. You have somebody who's having problems at work, right? And when I say problems at work, like their performance is low or whatever. You walk in the room, you start, hey, Brian, you're sucking right now. And if you don't get your numbers up, whatever, we're going to fire you. Right. And that automatically puts Brian in a position to where, you're looking at this and going, oh, should I even stay here? What's my future here if this is what the situation is? And you don't know what's going on with Brian at home. So the empathetic way of looking at this is going, okay, let's find out why Brian, who used to be a premier employee, did all this stuff great, and all of a sudden now he's having performance issues, right? You go and say, hey, Brian, what's going on? What's happening at home? What's happening around? What can we do to help you? What can we do to make you back to where you were before? What can we do to make you a better employee? What roadblocks are you running into that I, as a leader, can remove for you? That's being empathetic to the fact. Indecisive. And if you're going, oh, well, you're being indecisive because you're afraid to fire the guy. I mean,
well, no, it's just, okay, you're going to sit and listen to my problems. And a couple weeks later, we're going to have another talk. So you don't fire me. You're like, okay, I understand. We'll chat in a couple weeks. Let's do our best. And then a couple weeks later, it's other problems. So you don't fire me. You're being indecisive because you're overly empathetic.
No.
And you continue to give somebody chances over and over.
I disagree with that.
You disagree with what?
I disagree with the fact that that's being indecisive, because like what you need to do is
No. I'm saying that's being over empathetic,
no,
which is
I
leading to indecisiveness because you're not pulling the trigger, getting rid of dead weight, keeping me around because you're believing the sob story.
well, okay, so there's believing the sob story, or is there, if you were a good employee that you were doing well, and then there's a sob story on it, okay, fine. So on the other end of it, you could take this person and say, okay, fine, you're gone, fire them because you don't care, right? And move them in now. And I'm gonna qualify this here in a second and move them on to someplace else. Just get rid of them, right? And then you're going back to the hiring process again with somebody else and the training process, which is expensive, right? So it's cheaper actually to keep your employees than it is to fire them. Now, that being said, yes, at some point maybe this person isn't a fit for the company, and that's a whole different story, right? But being empathetic for them and understanding and putting them on some sort of, like I said, the job here isn't going, oh, poor Brian, I feel bad for him. His, dog has cancer and his, wife lost her left foot and, whatever, right? I always say that as a professor, finals time and the end of the semester is really, really, really bad for grandparents, because I don't know how many times I've had students, and there's always one or two per semester, that says, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't get this assignment done. My grandmother died, or my grandfather died, or something like that. So I always say, I never call them on it because I can't. But, the idea is like, wow, a lot of grandparents die during, during this time of, during the late months of November or late weeks of November and early December. So yeah, so there's that, right? But the other side of it though is you need to work with that employee and say, okay, what can we, the question here is, what can we do to help you, right? Now, if it's okay, I need time off, then give them time off, right? They have vacation time on the books, right? If it's that along those lines of where you're going, okay, how do I how do I help you with this? That's the question. Now, if you do this and they're still failing, then it's more than that. And then at some point, now this is where I was going to qualify this. Jim Collins talks about the fact that you need to have the right people on the bus and find the right seat for them. But sometimes you have to, maybe for that particular individual, right, removing them from the team, having them go someplace else, basically terminating employment with them, might actually be better for them, because they might not be thriving in this particular organization because they just don't fit, right? It's the wrong fit for them. And then you go, hey, but you do it in a way where you're saying, hey, Brian, I'm firing you. No, it's like, hey, Brian, look, you're not fitting in here. They're obviously, the team dynamics or the business or whatever it is isn't the right fit for you. And we're going to have to, I think we should part ways, but see if you can help them, land another position by giving them a good review or a good letter of recommendation, something along that line. So you're not just kicking him to the curb because he doesn't fit the team. You're doing them a favor. And then that person may go to another organization and thrive, right? And be great at where they're at and fit in. So it's not, when you're letting that dead weight go, as you call it, it's not being unempathetic to them, but you have to work with them first. You just walk in and I know your past, maybe still today, is you've always said you're quick to hire and quick to fire. And I kind of disagree with that. And maybe I am too slow to let someone go. But I think maybe because I see the potential in them, and like, that's where I'm at.
Well, two things. First off, my wife did not lose her left foot, if anyone was wondering. That was just an example. And number two, you said it was cheaper to keep somebody than to rehire and train. And yes, that might be the case. But if we keep the wrong individuals within our organization, their negativity, things are just going to spread. Liken it to a cancer. And if you cut that cancer out to save the team, that is a very decisive decision.
There's a difference between somebody being toxic and being a negative person on the team compared to someone who's just going through troubles.
Correct. And that's why you sit with him, you do chat with him, but it's not 15 times. In my opinion, I wouldn't waste my time. It's just, and it's not so much me wasting my time. If somebody is underperforming, whether it's toxic or not, they are not doing their job. And if I keep them on, bye, Todd. If I keep them on and continue to give them chance after chance after chance, at the very least, others are going to see that and see that, well, Jimmy gets away with everything. His numbers are down. He comes in late. He leaves early. And they might start behaving more like Jimmy, even though he's not toxic, but he's toxic to the environment, to the culture.
I mean, you know, coming in late, leaving early, those things, that's different than having.
I also said numbers were down.
Right. No, I'm saying those now again, that's where you talk to the person and say, hey, you know,
and that's what I said.
Do you need time off?
It's not just, oh, I don't like the way Jimmy sneezes, fire him. It's, of course, you sit down with him, especially in California. You know, I've noticed this behavior. It's negatively impacting your performance. And what can we do to solve for that?
You know, I want to go back to the first response world for a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, we have had the quickly to get rid of people who are in having issues in first response world. And what I mean, you know, right? And so without looking at some of the particular issues with, say, PTSD associated with it, you know, so there are other issues that are in the background that if you've seen somebody who is, like I said, I'm not talking about the guy who comes in and is toxic and is creating a work environment that is not conducive to teamwork. You know, that person. But if the person comes in and they used to be a high performer and then are starting to have issues, you know, that's when you have to have empathy for that person and work through it. And that's where an empathetic leader comes into play. And again, it isn't so much that you have to roll over. Or being empathetic doesn't mean that you roll over and have people walk on top of you, right? That's not it at all, right?
Correct.
You know, so great leaders possess two essential qualities, right? And that's going to be empathy and perspective, right? And so the perspective part goes into, how is this person really specifically being part of the team? Are they being a drag on the team, right? Do we need to move them? And again, maybe that perspective also, like I said before, says, hey, this person isn't working out here. Let's move them to another place. And we've seen this happen with sports teams, right? And I know that you don't like going into sports analogies, but these are things that we can see on a regular basis. You know, you have that person who's toxic in the locker room, and teams want to get rid of him. He might be a great ball player, but you know, he's toxic in the locker room.
But he's the coach. He's always yelling.
And on the other side of it, right, you might have a player who just doesn't gel with the team for whatever reason, can't get stuff done. The numbers are down, whatever. You trade him to another team, and I mean, a good example of Jared Goff, right? I mean, he's thriving where he's at right now, where he wasn't working well in Los Angeles. So, you know, so that's where it's getting the person on in the right location as well. And maybe they're on the wrong team and within the organization, you can keep them in the organization, you know, but moving them that way.
And I agree. And back to that question, too much empathy can show a lack of decisiveness in handling this situation, in my opinion.
I think on the opposite side of it too is too little empathy creates a place where people don't want to be.
Absolutely.
You know,
but you know what's really weird? We're now in this environment to where problems at home, and maybe I shouldn't say, in my opinion, let's preface it there. Problems at home are more of a concern of the work environment now than when they used to be. I remember being told, well, take care of your home life at home. When you're here, you work. not empathetic at all, right? Well within their right. Yeah, they're paying me to be here and perform a function. And if I'm letting home life or grandma died or something affect me at work, I might as well not be there rather than sit there and be Debbie Downer. Sorry, Debbie. And, just be in a funk and not do my work to the level I was.
And that might be true, right? But on the other side of it too is having an understanding of what your employees are going through, and not necessarily bringing home problems to work, and vice versa, right? Work problems to home. Sometimes people can compartmentalize like that, but others can't. I mean, if you think about it, if you have God forbid this ever happens to anybody, but you have a child or even a loved one who's going through, and you keep using cancer because that's one of the most terrible things to go through, but going through medical conditions, your mind might not be there, for a little bit. And again, asking that question, hey, and then telling them, hey, you have time on the books, take vacation, go take care of some stuff and come back when you're ready, or maybe even a short leave of absence or something along those lines, if without pay potentially. I think that does two things. One is he goes, hey, look, you go take care of your stuff. We're not going to fire you. Your job will be here when you're ready. Along those lines. I don't think there's too much. Right now, again, like if the person's being a jerk and being toxic and doing all this other stuff, although they might be having the same problems, which is causing that behavior, that's inappropriate and needs to go. You know what I mean? But if it's just somebody who's sulking in their office or whatever, I think it's a little
so let's transition into how does EQ meld into this?
So IQ used to be like the measure of everything, right? And they're saying that EQ now has, and I was looking for a book earlier, like it's on my shelf somewhere, I can't find it right now. The EQ portion of it actually shows more potential for positive leadership and positive outcomes in the workplace. And that's one thing that you can't necessarily, I'll say you can't teach it, because I think everybody has the ability to improve things. But when you see it in someone, you see somebody who has the high EQ, you go, wow, yeah, this is that charismatic leader. But not charismatic in the false sense, charismatic in the sense of like, they have the ability to read people, to be able to get them to do their best. And I think that's one of those things that leadership is really, it's important to have high EQ when you are leading a team.
Agree. And let's back up a second. The emotional intelligence is that individual recognizing who other people's emotions and their own, and coming up with solutions to meld them, truly understanding what others are going through. You understand what needs to be done and coming up with a way to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Pink, who you like a lot, and you went to one of his workshops, he speaks a lot about EQ and about empathy and about what it means to be. And he states empathy is about standing in someone's shoes, feeling his or her heart, and seeing with his or her eyes. And he goes, he has like a lot of work on empathy and EQ and what it means to lead from the other shoes.
Right.
And if you think about in the military, when you have people who were promoted, and it was a different world, right? But one of the things that staff NCOs would tell us when we first became non-commissioned officers or petty officers is like, remember where you came from. that a month ago you were sitting in those shoes, and don't let that rank go to your head. And the people that let the rank go to the head were terrible leaders, right? The ones that can start barking orders and stuff like this. You have to remember that. And I think that's one of the things. I think that's where EQ goes as well. Is like, remember where
Most definitely. And sorry to interrupt, but the people that didn't take their rank seriously also were bad leaders, right? It's a fine line. When you just start barking orders because you've got a stripe on your shoulder and you're just a tyrant about it, horrible leadership. But when you're still fraternizing and playing favorites and of the such with non-commissioned officers, then you're not a good leader either, because when it comes time to do the work, they're a little less apt of
But
doing
that's
it
not
because
empathy.
they know you'll. I didn't say that was empathy.
Right.
I was showing the other side of the coin to the tyrant type of leadership.
Well, right, but my point is that if you have the empathetic understanding of where you came from and understood those challenges that you had when you were E123, right, is different than going, oh, I want to be friends and hang out and drink beers and stuff like this. And
I didn't say it was the same, Todd.
right. Oh, I know, but this is. I just want to make sure everybody understands that's listening, that there's a difference between fraternization and being empathetic towards the situation. And so. Yeah. So let's get back into this. All right. So how does emotional intelligence contribute to an effective leader then? If you think that it's that EQ, is bad, how can it contribute to?
You know what's interesting? I think I spoke about this on the show before, but when I was promoted to corporal and I had to go to NADSAP, the Navy Alcohol Drug something program, the one thing I truly walked away was we choose our feelings. Todd can be angry at me, or he can choose not to be angry at me. Todd can punch me in the arm and I can choose to be angry, or I can choose to just laugh it off. But I'm in control of my emotions and I'm choosing how I'm going to react to any and all situations, right? And understanding that and taking others' emotional, I don't want to say outbursts, but emotions into play can help you be a better leader and make better decisions to accomplish what needs to be accomplished, correct?
Sure. Yes. Hang on. I'm dying here.
So Todd and I met. Why, he's coughing. We're going to have a comedy hour. Oh, he's back. Almost back. Is that a Toyota sticker?
Yeah, it is a Toyota sticker. Yep. Toyota. Like I said, I got a little coughing fit going on here.
And, back to EQ or emotional intelligence. Yes, it can be taught. To the point of, I sublet from a roofing company, Antis Roofing and Waterproofing here in Orange County. And when they have supervisory and managerial positions, people are moving up into them, they're going through EQ training because it's important to the founder of the company to have empathetic yet decisive leaders in the field. And I think that's phenomenal for a roofing company to recognize that. Not that they are beneath any other industry. They have a very important job in this world. But so many other companies don't put people through. Todd, have you ever been put through any sort of EQ training program at any job you've had where they mandated it? You need to go to this.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't called EQ then, but yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. AMR.
Really?
Through Leaders University. Yeah.
That's interesting. Glad I didn't have to. Anyway, I wish I would have, but I never have. I've been through tons of leadership. And it's been talked about, it's been brushed upon, but I've taken it upon myself, just like, that's funny. Love you, Tom. I take it upon myself to read books and educate myself on EQ. And to that facet, I think I'm a better husband. I think I'm a better father because of it. I'm not perfect by no means, but sitting there when somebody is angry, I like to sit and listen to their argument, and we'll use this as an example. And wifey, if you're listening, I love you. We're driving somewhere and I should have made a right turn and I missed my right turn. And she's, you should have made a right turn back there. You're right. I should have. So I go up a block and, I correct my course, but for whatever reason, there's anger that I didn't make the right turn when I should have made the right turn. Me recognizing that she's being a little emotional about me not making a right turn, and just letting it go. I'm not going to choose to be angry and lash back. I'm just going to say, you're right. I should have made that right turn. If behavior continues, I'll go, well, what can I do right now to fix this? And that usually shuts things down because there is nothing I can do to fix it. It's already fixed. Right.
Though, I mean, let's take this on to a little bit further, and that's about the specifically about the association between you and Lupe. But when we're looking at a problem, see you have an employee who is lashing out, right? And you go, hey, what's truly bothering you today? Is this the situation? Because you're overreacting to the situation that's happening right now. So what is truly bothering you, right? And I think that's where empathy can come into play. Instead of you getting mad back at the employee, right, and get into a shouting match. I've seen this happen before, right? Going, hey, what exactly is bothering you today?
Right.
And getting down to it might have nothing to do with what the situation is at all.
Right.
I
mean, and the funny thing is, I had a boss that lashed out all the time. And it doesn't matter what it was, but I had the understanding of, I wonder what he's going to choose to be angry about today.
Yeah.
And I would take breaks and I would just go out and just process his emotions in the workplace. And I did my best not to let it affect me. After a while, I'm like, this isn't the place for me. And I ended up leaving that company because of that leader's attitude, emotional state, anger. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun to be there. It wasn't fun to work there. It was an insane environment.
Absolutely. I think we've all had bosses like that. I had a guy that I worked for, and like whoever was first into work would gauge his mood that day and let everybody else know coming in. Okay, he's in a red mood or a blue mood or whatever, right?
Right.
So it was kind of we sort of made fun of it, but in a way. But I mean, and that's the thing. And it's obviously the kind of crazy part about it. It's almost having empathy for your boss, right? To see what mood he's in. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, like the idea of what mood they're in, and then gauge your day based upon on that. When you think of empathy in leadership specifically, how do you incorporate empathy and emotional intelligence into an organizational structure? And I know that you have interns that come and go. Do you talk to them about what the organizational structure is, what the culture, I mean, and whether, how does that work for you?
No, I mean, we are a pretty relaxed environment. Because of my background in the military and in EMS, I don't get worked up about a lot of problems, especially the first time. It's like, okay, let's figure out how we can get through this. Let's get through it. But when interns come in, I have that talk with them. At the end of the day, what we are doing here, nobody is at the risk of dying if we do it poorly. And that's how I gauge things in life, So Yes, this is a problem. Yes, we're going to have to put 3 more extra hours into this, but it is what it is at this point. Let's just get to work and get this done. And that's the environment I want. The majority of the interns might work with me a little bit. I gauge their acumen, if you will, in this industry, and I try to push them off to one of the employees because they're closer in age. They are the ones doing the work. You know, if you sit and shadow me, you're going to learn how to run a company. If you sit and shadow them, you're going to learn how to do the work that this company does. And that's what they came here to do. So I try not to coddle them, if you will. I push them into uncomfortable situations. I want to see how resilient they can be. Are they able to take notes? Are they able to run a live show? As you've learned running your own live show, Todd, it's, you know, it's easy to make mistakes. And when you do, it's 100% evident.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this is a relaxed, creative environment. We do a lot of talking. We bounce ideas off each other. Nothing is stupid. There is no stupid idea. Because everybody comes here. This is the one beautiful thing about working in a creative space. Everybody comes here with different experiences, different EQs. And because I've never seen it done that way, doesn't mean it's stupid, doesn't mean it's dumb. It just means I've never done it that way. So let's try it. So we talk, we sit down in the lounge and we just run things past each other. And that's where creativity really thrives. So it's easy to work and lead in this environment because what we do is fun, with the exception of, verifying transcription. I was waiting for a smile, Todd, but it's a relaxed environment. There is no hardcore deadline. Yes, every show has a deadline, but we don't work to where our deadlines are tight because something always comes up. If I recorded something today and had to have it out, 100% edited and out tonight, I'm shooting myself in the foot. So we plan accordingly. And I know I kind of got off topic there. However, the environment here is that of a relaxed environment. I think he was laughing at me. He was just hiding it with a cough.
100% relaxed environment. Yeah, absolutely. So how do you think being an empathetic leader then, or in some cases, you're saying like, and I don't want to go back to those too much empathy thing, but when you approach something being an empathetic mindset of saying, like you just said, like working with your interns specifically, you put them with the younger members of your organization because they're closer to age, they can relate a little bit better. That's truly an empathetic mindset right there. How does that increase productivity?
It just makes them feel more comfortable. Number one, I'm mainly doing it so my employees now have to step up into a leadership role. They're now managing an intern that has a project with that loose deadline, right? So they get to learn and grow as well. And I get to sit here and listen to how they interact. I get to sit here and listen. And sometimes if something's off base, then I'll pull that employee aside and we'll have a little chat about it or that. So it's multifaceted. They're learning from a peer. My employees are learning to manage peers, which is a valuable lesson for them and, to whatever they move on to in life after, they've left here.
After they left here. So it goes back to the idea then of what's the quote? I always mess it up. Like train them so they can leave and treat them well.
Train them well enough so they can leave, treat them well enough so they'll stay.
And I think that's where the empathetic leader comes into play, right? That you're treating them well enough that they want to stay. You did talk about the fact that businesses often lack proper leadership training. And one of the things I find interesting is there was a podcast I listened to called Freakonomics. It talks about the economics of daily life, and they got into this conversation about leadership, and how people just automatically promote the best performing person, not automatically, but for the most part, the best performing individual in that particular department to become the manager. And then you go, okay, because they're good performers, they're going to be good managers. And that isn't necessarily true without giving them training. And there's the Peter principle, right? Which started off, and I've talked about this before, as a satire, but it's come true. And it's saying that you rise through the organization until you're to your competence, right? And what that does necessarily means doesn't mean like incompetent people get promoted. It's they keep promoting people until they fail. And I kind of feel that is not good for the individual. It's definitely not good for the organization. So what do you think of this? Should we do more formal leadership training for people who are getting promoted?
Absolutely. And not just people that are going to get promoted. I ran a pretty large security detail at a large electronics company. And you come in at a lower post with the least amount of responsibility to ease you into the job. And as soon as you were comfortable and competent in that role, you would then start cross-training for the next position that you would logically get moved to. And once you got competent and comfortable, you would then start cross-training. You might still be standing that low post because we've had zero turnover, but now you're cross-trained into 2, sometimes 3 posts above you. And sometimes that was an indicator with, they're not going to be good for that role. So I need to come up with plan B and C, or man, they're just excelling through all of this, which is cool. Training for a position doesn't mean you're going to get it. It's just you're cross training. If we have a call off, if somebody's injured, we can still do our job seamlessly, was the whole intent of that. But it was also a trial period for me to stress them out, for me to see how they handle situations that they normally don't have to handle. Right.
Right.
And, I just think empathy is good. Having EQ is good. Working with employees to try to get them past hurdles, whether it be at work or outside of the work environment that are affecting their work, is important to a point. But at a point, I feel a good leader will cut their losses, because that's showing the other employees, I'm not getting the wool pulled over my eyes. Johnny's not giving me the same excuse 4 months in a row and still doing what Joey does. Joey, Freudian slip. And I think that's an important part of leadership as well, which led back to that first question of too much empathy can be looked at as a lack of decisiveness.
I'm going to share this quote because I think I like it. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that all people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had. F. Scott Fitzgerald.
But at the end of the day, it's our job to make sure the job is getting done. Our employees are taken care of and the job is getting done. And if we continue to be empathetic and let employees underperform because of their issues outside of the workplace or issues inside of the workplace, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. Todd, if you had to counsel somebody and do a 5-page counseling sheet every time you needed to document behavior, right? And it took you 45 minutes just to do the paperwork, and you're doing it for the same reason with the same employee week after week after week, how much lost productivity is that from you?
And again, I don't, like I said, there's a difference between putting the person on performance evaluation, helping them out, see what they can do. If they don't perform after that, then there's a different conversation. That's when you say, hey, maybe you don't fit here, maybe you need to find another place. But you could do it in an empathetic way. You don't just walk in and say, hey, you're fired, get the hell out.
I never said don't be tactful.
Right. Well,
you know, you can have tact and you can do things professionally, and you should.
Simon Sinek said, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge.
Correct.
And I think that's where you're looking at somebody who's empathetic, and you're taking care of the people who work for you. And that's the way and anybody who's ever worked for me knows that I tell them all the time. So my job isn't to do your job. My job is to make sure that you can do your job and that I can open the doors, open windows, or kick down walls if need be, so you can do your job better. And I think that's where I'm talking about when you look at it. The empathetic leader is someone who is there for the person, for your team members, for both as a boss, as a leader, and then and then also as someone who is knowing that they're going to look out for the troops behind under you. Unless you have last word, Brian.
I think the one takeaway I would like people to take from this is explore EQ. You can find tons of free training online. You can find tons of books about it. But if you explore it and break it down, especially if you're new to the concept, which a lot of new leaders are, I think you will quickly see that it's going to benefit you in your personal life and professional life.
Absolutely. Well, next week, we're going to be talking about resilient leadership. So we'll see that. What do you think about that?
I think resiliency is awesome.
Okay. All right, everybody. I'll see you next week. You've been listening to Leaders Cafe, where today's brightest minds come together to share their insights and ideas. Leaders Cafe is an EMN media production. We're so grateful to have you join us. Our podcast is hosted by Todd DeVoe and Brian Colburn. Their insightful conversations and probing questions make every episode a journey worth embarking upon. Special thanks goes to our sound engineers, researchers, marketing team, and everyone who plays a role bringing Leaders Cafe to life. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episodes, share it with a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. For more content, updates, and resources, visit our website and follow us on social media. Links are available in the episode description. For all of us here today at Leaders Cafe and EMN Media Production, thank you for tuning in. Keep leading, keep learning, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Hi, everyone. If you're still with us, we are still live. Todd, push that button. I can't hear you. You